Welcome to the Old Souls and Seekers podcast, brought to you by Satori Prime. If you're anything like us, you've been around and around the personal development and mindset block quite a few times. You've read the books, watched the videos, attended the seminars, and even worked with a coach or two, and yet you still find yourself searching for more. You may even feel stuck or that you should be farther along than where you are right now. And after doing over a decade of mindset work, we've come to this realization. Mindset work is like a small hit of dopamine that distracts you from your true work. You get these little hits of feeling better, only to be met with the same underlying conditions and patterns over and over again. Now, mindset was an important part of your evolution as well as ours, but it hits a plateau, and now you find yourself ready for that deeper layer of growth and expansion. If you're listening to this podcast, then you're ready to get off that Ferris wheel. This podcast is only for those that are ready to dive deep and do the real inner healing work. For those that are ready to move past more information into actual experiences. If you're looking for more understanding, then you've come to the wrong place. This is a home for old souls ready to fully embrace and remember who they truly are. Ready to make a profound difference in their lives and in the lives of others. So welcome home, dear one. We're excited to be part of your journey. All right. Welcome, one and all. Well, for those of you guys that are here, I'm happy to do a blend today because it is a solo trip where Elon and I are not communicating back and forth. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have regarding your transformational journey. I'll give you a little bit of coaching on some area of life that you feel like you're currently being challenged with and that you'd love to have a breakthrough in. Otherwise, I'm happy to kind of just investigate certain things that I've been working through and what that looks like from my end. And I think that, placates into a lot of universal experiences. So feel free to, thank you, Elena, for putting in some questions in the chat box there. And I'll get to it. And if not, then we'll just have a little conversation. Thanks, guys. So, let's talk about this kind of holistic approach to transformation. I'll throw a question out there for you guys who are here. And especially if you're earlier on in your journey, and truth be told, even me 21 years in, I still get caught in this trap from time to time, which is this idea of getting yourself to complete and utter resolution. Okay. So it's like, I want you to consider when you're approaching transformation, and you think, okay, I want to make a change in my life. I need to learn some new skills. What I've done in the past has yielded some results, but probably not desirable ones. And, most people that come through our doors are finding themselves in some kind of pattern. Okay. And that pattern is probably something they've been experiencing for most, if not their entire lives. Okay. And these patterns are not iterated by your level of success in life. Okay. They're not iterated by really any circumstance in your life. They're just iterated by early experiences you had as a child, a certain energy that you're living inside of. And then that energy creates it. So it's not like money resolves this. It's not like having the perfect house resolves this. It's not like having the perfect mate resolves this. None of these external factors resolve this. And then so for most people, as they come to this work, and certainly I did the same thing, my goal was always resolution. It's like the only way that I will feel better in this world, the only way that I will know that this work is providing me access to true transformation is if I no longer have to deal with this particular circumstance, this particular conditioning, or this particular pattern anymore. And I think for a lot of people that I speak to, I still get a sense of that in the background for them, whether they say that directly or not. For example, I know Stacy, for you, there's anxiety maybe on the level of even panic from time to time that, a lot of people out there are dealing with that as well. And so I want to at least, before I get into some of your questions here, I want to lift the veil on that a little bit. And it's like this work and work in general, while it may create some kind of resolution, if that's the only measurement you have for whether you're successfully transforming your life or not, I think you're going to find that you're going to be pretty disappointed. Okay. And I really don't mean to make that sound negative. I actually think it's a positive thing, as long as you are working these parts, these conditions, with the understanding of that whatever you've experienced up until now in your life, the most likely outcome inside of that conditioning is that you are going to meet that conditioning again in some way, shape, or form. Okay. Like, you're going to have fear again. You're going to experience anxiety again. You're going to experience overwhelm again in your life. And I honestly, it doesn't matter how knowledgeable you get, how many experiences you have, how many times you transform your life, those things are going to creep back in different ways. Why? Because we're human. And humans experience anxiety and stress and fear and even panic states and anxiety, and all these things, dare I say, even on a regular basis, even if not at a place where it's overtaking you and running your life. At the very least, it's going to show up in subtle ways in your life. Someone's going to say something that you don't like and don't agree with. You're going to have an experience. Money's going to come, money's going to go. Relationships are going to feel smooth, and they're going to feel like kind of rocky, right? And so none of us can make those kind of circumstantial predictions. And again, if we enter this work and we say, hey, look, I want to be in full control of everything that goes on. I never want to be bothered again. I never want to feel stressed out again. I never want to feel anxious again. Never want to experience overwhelm again. All my relationships need to be perfect. I have to experience perfect and idyllic health at all times. If I don't have an APAC, if my hair is not growing, then this is cause for alarm. And, woe is me, and my life is a total shitbag, or whatever it is, right? And it's like, that's just not, it's not a good way to approach the work, because you often miss the headway that you've made when you're squarely focused on a result that you think you're supposed to have. And again, I get caught in these trappings as well. And I got to get reminders from people I work with on a regular basis to pull back and really see, it's like, hey, what can you notice that has changed? Hey, so there's this circumstance again in your life that's causing the anxiety. How long do you get stuck in that now? Is it months, weeks, days, hours, minutes? And I would say overall, what we're looking for is your ability to grow a threshold and to continue to be in a loving state towards yourself and others as circumstances that you would consider not desirable are there or arise, right? Again, nobody can control reality, how it's unfolding. Nobody can control other people's responses to life or to you or to your transformation or anything else. And so it would be silly for any teacher, any coach, any mentor to tell you, hey, I can guarantee you that this thing that's been going on in your life is never going to happen again. That's silly. It's silly, and I don't think it's realistic. What we really want to work on is, how is your mind, how is your nervous system, how is your emotional body, your energetic body responding when a circumstance like that arises in your life? Are you responding from a place of groundedness? Are you responding from alignment in your intuition? Do you still feel connected to yourself and others? Is love present for yourself and others when that thing is happening? Or is it completely taking you for a ride? Are you now in the simulation? You're completely invested in that reality, and you no longer have a say, and you're just kind of, a kite in the wind going along for the ride. And that, to me, is really what this work is about. Because no matter what arises in my life, when love falls out for myself, when I feel like I don't deserve connection, when I feel like I don't deserve support, when I isolate myself to my thoughts, to my emotions, to things that I think is pretty, again, human, to not want to show weakness, to not want to show vulnerability in front of other people, because we think, hey, what are they going to think of me if they know I'm dealing with it from that place? If people know that I have dark thoughts, or I get overwhelmed, or my relationships aren't, pristine all the time, or whatever it might be. And there's an aspect of us dehumanizing our experience on a regular basis, thinking that it's supposed to be this like idyllic idea that we have in our mind, which, just doesn't seem to really do much except for cause a lot of stress in our lives. The rule of thumb is, if you have an expectation, you're going to be let down. Any expectation, any attachment over a long enough timeline, usually a short timeline, is going to lead to some kind of pain or suffering in your life. And so the trick is always to disassociate. Maybe disassociate's a bit of a strong word, but detach and kind of take a step back from the reality or simulation that your mind is creating, the stories and the meaning that it's deriving from what's happening in front of you, and then and watch. Simply if it's funny, if we could have any program, the whole program would just be called Just Watch It. Just watch what's happening. Observe what's happening without meddling, without getting involved, without trying to do something about it. Because when we watch, when we can learn how to simply observe what is happening, and that's a skill. Okay. I mean, like, that is a super advanced skill. You can tell yourself, hey, I'm going to be really vigilant with what's happening, right? And the next moment you get taken out. Then you bring yourself back into observing. Okay, I'm just going to observe what's happening within my body, within the circumstances around me, within my emotional and energetic and mental experience. I'm going to just watch, and I'm going to let it unfold. It's easy to think about, but in the moment where things are happening, when emotions run high, I don't know about you, but the higher the emotional state, the more arousal there is in the nervous system, the more difficult it seems to become to differentiate within what's real and what it is that we're actually making up in our mind. And I know for a lot of people, they haven't even gotten to that point where they're considering, oh, I'm just making this up. My mind is just making this up. It's trying to survive something. And this is the story that it's deriving in this moment because it makes the most sense for the way that I perceive the world. And it's a great way for it to convince me that it's going to help, that this is what's going to create safety. But again, you got to look at your own mind. You got to look at your own life and the results that you're getting. And if the results seem to be in a loop and you don't enjoy that loop, it's a vicious circle of negativity, of difficult emotional experiences, of relationships that are breaking down, or whatever it is that you can derive as evidence, then you are going to the wrong part of yourself to try to find a solution. Because it's really strange how the mind works. It will offer the solution while also being the problem. Right? It's like its conversation, its conditioning, it's the energy that we're outputting is creating this reality experience for us. And at the same time, it's going, I got this, don't worry. Let me just think all day. I'll keep you up at night. I'll pump the heart, I'll throw adrenaline in there, and we're gonna think this through until we find a solution. And I don't know about you, but nothing really changes totally in the world of the mind, because the mind is kind of set, right? It has a lot of conditioning. Now, certainly there is things like neuroplasticity. We can retrain ourselves through immense amount of repetition. And so for me, and again, I think a mistake I see a lot of people make early on is they think they can put in a 2 or 3 day, intensive, and that will just take care of everything. And then they keep going from one intensive to the next, but things don't really ever change for them. Because what they're missing is that the day-to-day, the subtle stuff that happens on the day-to-day, how we practice, the fact that we show up and practice every single day and do those 10,000, 100,000 repetitions is really ultimately what transforms your life. It's true, and I want to offer a few little key points here so that you guys can take away something for yourself, because it's conversations we were having in our advanced work that hit me pretty hard yesterday, and I wanted to just kind of bring it down over here. And so all that sounds like bad news in a way, because it's like, fuck, this is going to take a lot of effort. Here's the reality. Yes, it is. I don't want to lie to you by telling you that, hey, in a week-long program or 8-week program, everything's going to change. Can you learn all the skills necessary, the practices, philosophies, paradigms that you need or get to have in order to transform your life in that period of time? Absolutely. You can learn that in a weekend. 2 days, no problem. Right? Like you guys come to our Intuitive Mind live experience, you are going to find a whole new pathway to explore yourself and bring transformation and accelerated healing into your life. And if you want to be at that next event, it's coming up in less than a month on April 20th. You can go to intuitivemind.live to pick up your ticket. If you throw a coupon in there, half 50, like HALF 50, you can even get 50% off. And it still comes with a companion ticket for you and a friend or a colleague or whatever. And that's a great way, by the way, to learn those skills and accelerate. And for many of our advanced students, by the way, they nearly always come back to those live events on a regular basis. I think we've held well over 20 of those now. Some people have been at all 20. Some people have been at like 15, you name it. And the reason they come back is not because the content is really different. It's because there's something happening there at the level of energy and experience that every single time updates, accelerates, and informs their system. And that's ultimately what we need. We can't just live and trusting that by gathering more information or containing ourselves with more wisdom, that our life is going to change. That is an important aspect of it. But we are mental creatures, emotional creatures, energetic creatures. And in my experience, the most impactful experiences have to touch all three. You have to have a map where you understand. You have to play in the territory of that map and actually have an experience. That experience needs to drive an emotional experience. And you need to energetically feel something. You know, we take people down to the jungles of Colombia to do ayahuasca once a year. And they usually do 3 to 4 experiences in a 5-day period, depending on how people are tuning to the medicine. And the reason medicine like that is so powerful is because it does do all those things. It brings in every aspect of yourself, even aspects of yourself you don't know or have never explored before, like the multi-dimensional aspect of a human being. But what we're talking about here, even mental landscape, right? Mental body, energetic body, emotional body. These are dimensions of a human being. And in ancient times, where spirituality, I believe, was more well known to most people, I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about spirituality here. There is some overlap there, but I'm talking just spirituality in terms of like somebody who's pursuing growth and liberation and freedom by like any means necessary. Okay. And in those times, people got initiated in just mindset stuff. People got initiated in just the body stuff. People got initiated in just energetic stuff. And when I look at my own journey over a 21-year period, I've spent or invested about 7 years and then ongoingly from there. So like the first 7 years was very mental for me. The next 7 years were very experiential for me. And the last 7-8 years have been much more energetic for me, like exploring energetics. And so each one of those has informed me in different ways. And each one of those things, it's not like I stopped training in those things. I continue to train in those things every single day. And so I want to just give you a little purview of what I mean by all this. So I can kind of put a bow on it, and then I'll start looking at your questions. And thank you, Dan, for bringing that to my attention. I'll definitely read the questions and answer them. But think about your most challenging relationship. Okay. Think about one of your most challenging relationships. For me, historically, the most challenging relationship I used to have was the one with my dad. Okay. We're very similar, stubborn as fuck. My dad is like a military guy. We grew up in an extremely, dare I say, loving home, but not a lot of emotional attunement. So we never really talked about emotion. Everything was very mental. So when there's problems, everything was dealt with from a very mental place. So there's not a lot of attunement. He's a my way or the highway kind of guy. His rules must be followed, that kind of thing. Overall, though, my parents were very loving people on paper. I, however, even in that kind of home, grew up with a very intense depression, suicidal tendencies, very, very challenging. And as a result of that, anger, like a lot of anger came forward. And this came at a very early age. By the time I was like 5 or 6, I was like filled with rage. And so I and my father, ironically, did a lot of work together, like tons and tons of transformational work together, probably for about a decade. Okay. And it's not like we didn't make headway, because what we learned in doing that work was how to take responsibility for what we couldn't take responsibility for when we were younger. That stubbornness didn't allow for it. And so in the beginning, taking radical responsibility for the experience that you're having is the transformation. This is not an easy thing for your ego to do. Your ego will convince you that something is happening out there, that they are doing something to you, and that this experience is happening to you. Okay. The first transformation anybody can make is going from it's happening to me and going to it's happening for me. Okay. It's happening for me. It's really that first like paradigm shift that we get to make. Eventually we start seeing it's not even happening for me. It's literally happening through me. Like it's being birthed through my essence. That's pretty advanced once we get there. And that's kind of what intuitive mind deals with, is making that transition from it's happening for me to it's happening through me, like actually having a direct experience with creating something energetically and how we do that. Okay. So why do I know that this work works? Because what I eventually realized was that inside of me and inside of all of us are these traumatized little parts. And for me, let's just call it my little boy who had a certain experience in that house. Some need wasn't met. And you will notice that when you're around mom and dad, and you see this all the time when people go out and gather degrees or get good jobs, what are they trying to do? They're trying to get mom and dad's approval. That's at the mental level. That's a story we've created. But if you just drop down into the body of a person who's doing that, and maybe you're a person who's doing that, but even if you're not, bring yourself into a life of somebody who's doing that, and you tell me what's happening inside of the body. And I mentioned it. There's a need that is not met in that relationship. And so the system energetically is reaching out, trying to get that need met. Or it's been, for most of us, that what is really occurring is the system has stopped reaching out because there's a need, an unmet need. It's like trying to go get food all the time from the same source, and there's no food there anymore. Eventually, you stop going to that source to try to get food. You will not get satiated over there. And so we stop asking energetically, so speaking, and we close up shop, and we unconsciously come to a conclusion that that need will never be met. And so a part of us locks down, and then we will not ask for support anymore in that way, because heaven forbid we did that, we will have to experience the heartbreak that that child experienced when you were much younger and you kept trying to get that need met, and they kept breaking your heart, or you kept having the experience of a broken heart. And so eventually you just say, that need will never get met. I'm just going to live with this feeling inside of my body, this depravity, knowing that I can't get that need met. And then maybe you get into a relationship and you're like, oh, maybe this person can meet that need. And you try a little bit, they break your heart, you shut down even more. Okay. And eventually you're just kind of this closed up body, emotional and energetic body, compressed inside of your own system, wondering why you feel this anxiety or stress in your body all the time. Well, this is why. It's this unmet need. And so a lot of us will at some point maybe realize that this is happening. And then we'll go to that person and we'll try to get some completion. And that's what I did with my dad for about 10 years. I wasn't exactly clear what wasn't complete, but I knew that something wasn't complete. And when I was around him, the way I knew that was because mentally I love my dad. I was like, oh, dad is awesome. Thank you for everything, blah, blah, blah. But what I would feel inside of my body is this intense tension. Okay. And maybe you guys can just let me know in the chat box if you know what I'm talking about here. And Dan, you're sending me messages, but just so you know, you're sending them to me privately, not to everybody. So let me know if you know what I'm talking about. Just say yes or I in the chat box, right? There's this like tension. You get around this person and you don't even know why. And for some of us, we don't even recognize we're doing this. So it's like this unconscious tension. And then there's tension in the relationship, but our mind will go, oh, they're doing this thing to me. But it's like you are energetically coming into the space with tension. And when you bring tension to the space is tense. And so the person unconsciously begins responding to the energetic tension that's in the room. We can't help ourselves. This is how every mammal on planet Earth responds to everything. If you think that we are not energetic beings, it's time to reconsider. Okay? We don't live in just a mental landscape. There's a feeling, when you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, so to speak, this is what you're really saying is I woke up and I wasn't in alignment. When you hear in sports, a commentator say things like, oh, the momentum has moved to the other team. What he's talking about is there's more energy with the other team than with this team. And we can clearly see when the momentum swings that the team that has the energy is doing a lot better than the team that has none. And so we say stuff like this all the time in our society about how we feel, but we talk about it as an emotional state. We talk about it from a mental landscape. And what we're not doing is we're not having the direct experience of the energy that we're carrying inside of our body. And so we often miss how the energy that we're carrying is actually distorting reality and creating the circumstances that our mind is battling against, right? This mind that has told you it's going to take care of everything. And so back to the conversation with my dad. And so I had this experience of like, I could feel there's a part of my system that's like, Dad, we got to get this complete. Dad, we got to get this complete. Dad, I need you to see me. Dad, I need you to, whatever it is, right? Again, this is all mental spew, but it's not how it occurs to me. It's like this feeling in my body. Okay. And so here's what I realized eventually is that my father doesn't have the attunement, the wherewithal, and or the skills, at least at this point in his life, to give me what I need. Because if he would have had those skills, I would have gotten that a long time ago. And specifically, the best word I found for this is attunement. I wanted a specific attunement for my dad. It's not just, hey, I'm here with you and I see you. And maybe you can feel into that. As a child, there's this way that you wanted to be received. And that the way they want to be received is hard to articulate into words. You just knew that you weren't being received the way that you wanted to be received. How you wanted to be received, you don't know because you've never been received that way. So how would you even know it? And then maybe when you first fall in love with somebody or you get married, what you're feeling is that you're getting received by this person and they're attuning to you, which generally happens during the honeymoon period of the relationship. But then eventually we all go and fall back into our conditioning. And then now you have two people in a relationship with having conditioning battles, both trying to get their needs met, the same needs that they've been trying to get met from mom and dad. Still hasn't happened. And so why do you want to be in a community like this? Like why, one of the most valuable things beyond the courses that we teach, the philosophies, the principles, the practices, is really the community itself. And anybody who's been here, a long time, Sally, Dan, Sally's saying that's us. They are the community. They are the reason this whole Michigan, this whole thing works. Because Elon and I, it is impossible for any individual or two individuals to do healing work at scale. And the thing that we have to recognize is that healing work, true healing work, which again, healing does not mean resolution, by the way. Okay. Healing means you love what was unloved. That's it. That's all that means. It means, the stress is arising. Stacy talks about anxiety on a regular basis. Stacy's having an experience where she doesn't love her anxiety. And I get it because anxiety is not a pleasurable experience in the body, but it's not welcomed. Or at least maybe she's working on that. And slowly but surely it's getting welcomed. But as long as it's not welcome and it feels like it's an antagonistic relationship between her and her anxiety, healing is not possible. Healing is your ability to have something arise and unfold in your life and you receive it fully. Now, this happens because what you get to have is sitting with another human being who has this level of presence, right? Again, this is not mental that I'm talking about. We train people how to go into a certain level of awareness and sit with another individual going through a challenging experience in their conditioning. And when you receive that attunement from another human being, like the same one you wanted from mom and dad, something in the system changes. Something gets met, something gets attuned to, and this part of you that's been living in deprivation and feeling empty gets full. And when it gets full, it kind of, I call it metabolizes. It metabolizes from the system, and you're left with this like feeling in your body of spaciousness. Suddenly it's like and you wouldn't even know that you needed space there until that falls through. That's the kind of the paradox of all this healing work, is that you don't even know what you're looking for, and you don't know it until it happens. And when it happens, you're like, that's what I've been looking for. Again, that's so different than like meeting a spouse or a loved one. It's like, you have all these ideas of what your husband or wife is going to look like, who they're going to be. And then it happens. And part of you is like, oh, I didn't even know I wanted that or needed that or was attracted to that or whatever it was, right? It's like until you have that experience, you didn't know. And the reason for that is human beings learn through contrast. So we're all stuck in our conditioning. We're all stuck in our experiences, and we think we know what the resolution is. But if you knew what the resolution was, you would have already resolved it. Which tells me that we don't have the data or the experience inside of our system to resolve our own stuff. And so the reflection and attunement of another being is a way for us to begin to A, get that need met, and B, start getting some reflection, right? We mirror each other, some reflection and an offering of contrast. So we can say, oh, look how that system is receiving me. And again, this is happening at the level of energy, most importantly. And what it really does is it retrains your nervous system to go from being upregulated to being downregulated. When you have a downregulated nervous system and there's stress and overwhelm and anxiety, you can handle it very easily. It just kind of moves through the body. You open, you relax, you let it move through. The experience is done. I had kind of intense anxiety last night, middle of the night. I woke up, I don't know if it was from a dream or just, circumstances in my life right now, probably a combination. And it was just like, I literally could feel the adrenaline pumping in my body. Right. And the practice is then to accept it, because there's nothing else I can do. It's already happening outside of my control, by the way. It's just the body's responding to stimulus. I'm opening, I'm finding ground in my system, and I'm beginning the process of relaxing into the experience. And as I open and relax, the stress or anxiety can actually move through my system instead of getting stuck. And then when it gets stuck, it amplifies and the mind gets more concerned. And so to kind of put a bow on the thing with my dad, the insight I ultimately had was, A, he can't give me what I want, nor is it his responsibility, because he didn't get that as a young boy either. His father certainly did not attune to him. And so he could not have learned that skill unless he was putting in the time and commitment like I was, which I know he's not. And I'm seeing what it's taking me to learn this skill. So how can I ever put him in a boat where I'm like, hey, give it to me or the relationship's not going to work, right? So I gave up this idea that my dad had to be a certain way or had to see me in any specific way. And the second insight was, even though my dad can't give me that, other people in community can. And so just like this community, I've been part of a lot of different healing communities, very powerful, potent ones. Again, the huge value of being part of what we're organizing here is the community, is your ability to sit with other people who know how to give you attunement and can satiate those parts. And so I started working on bringing that part forward, but sitting with other people. And trust me, for people who have an objective perspective, way, way easier for them to hold and attune to you, right? You have a lot of stuff with the people in your life. And that stuff, whether you want it to or not, like suitcases on a trip, come along with you. And so it's much more difficult to be in a setting with family members to get healing. Can it happen? Absolutely. And they have to be extremely well trained. And even then, when you're in pattern with each other and you're doing protest behavior, very difficult. Like, this stuff still happens with my wife where we get into protest with each other. She's a very highly trained human being too, a wonderful healer in her own right. And I could tell you, like, even we get pulled into our stuff, but in the moments where we're aware enough and we can hold it and just see the other person going through something and we're just attuning and holding to them, those are the most healing experiences that I've ever had. Because of course, a person who loves you and can offer that to you, it's like the most beautiful medicine in the world. And so I started doing this, working with my dad, but not with my dad, just with other people. And, we were just in Utah together in a house, and there's a lot of experiences over the last 3-4 years. We had a really intense experience in Miami, in Florida a few years back. Like, it was one of the worst blowouts I've had with him in like a 20-year period. I felt like high school all over again. That was the last time that happened, by the way. Even in that moment, like, this awareness came in and like changed, like, he was on this like warpath, and I just kind of brought my awareness and grounded. And I said something, and it was as if this conditioning, this reality that we had both been living in, like, popped like a bubble. I've never seen my dad change so quickly in my entire life. Like, just from both of us being just totally furious to just completely placid, We went out to lunch with the whole family, had this beautiful time together. Like my mind couldn't even make sense of how radical the change was. And this has all been on the back of me focusing on getting my needs met with other people. And what I recognize over time is that that energetic piece that was trying to get that need met no longer was there when I was around my dad. And so the tension I felt in my system when I was around him that I really truly did not understand and was happening unconsciously, as part of this experience of just being in that environment with him, just stopped happening. And then guess what happened to the relationship? It just smoothed out. Like what if you had, a friend or a kid or a spouse who's just like asking, like, come on, give it to me. And you're like, I don't have it. I can't give it to you. And they're like, give it to me. You're like, all right, I told you I don't have it. Give it to me. I don't have it. Leave me alone. So that's what's happening unconsciously at the level of energy, is when there's a pull like that on someone's system, they're getting agitated energetically and unconsciously through your own unmet needs, through your own agitations. And this is why when you start understanding radical responsibility, it's not on them to change, because they're in the same trappings as you are, in the conditioning of their mind, in the conditioning of their emotions, in the conditioning of their energetic composition. And they may or may not be doing this work. I don't know, but chances are they're probably not. You're probably kind of lone wolfing this whole thing, which is, again, why you want to be part of a community, so you don't do that. Because one of the biggest trappings, one of the biggest ways for you to slow down your own growth is by doing it by yourself. I don't care how aware I've become, $500,000 into my education or more at this point in time, 21 years, the mind is alluring. It is a tempting place to be. And it will convince you of crazy shit that you will objectively justify to everyone around you, because you have to, in order to feel like you're surviving in this world, in this reality. And underneath all that is these layers and layers of unmet needs that can get met through extremely simple practices that take 5 to 10 minutes a day. And a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. It's what we call minis. And so look, there are layers to this. We need to understand what the mind is doing so that we can see what the mind is doing. Until you understand how the paradigm shifting of the mind works, you will not see it doing that. It will just do that, without you being consciously aware of that. That's what our level 1 work is. Level 2 is beginning to bring the energetic component online. Bring yourself to the subtle awarenesses that are necessary to feel in real time what is happening inside of the body. The ability to track oneself is one of the most underutilized skills that a human being has to develop, that almost nobody has developed in this world. This will change your life dramatically, because you will no longer go to the mind to ask it, how do we fix this? You will just feel into the body. You will learn how to observe, and you will watch how things melt away without you lifting a finger. Okay? Because it's not hard work. It just means you got to show up. Being committed just means showing up to do the work. And a third level is really starting to attune to your environment, to attuning to other people, to seeing how you can develop safety and well-being at a very high level within yourself. And then also being in authentic contact and communication and relationship with other people and circumstances alike. Because real confidence, not the plagiarized bullshit confidence you see on TV where people have a lot of money and a lot of material wealth and like, oh, I got it all made, but inside they're crushing. Real confidence is the ability to be with whatever is arising in life as it arises, and still being grounded and aligned and in a loving space with it. You receive it, you accept it, you honor it. Yes, even anxiety, yes, even stress, yes, even a lack of money, like whatever is coming, that's what's here for you now. That's your teacher right now. The biggest mistake people make when circumstances are bad is not honoring the circumstance. And I feel you. I still do that. My human really, really wants to change certain things in my life that agitate me or that cause stress or even fear or terror. The quicker you can come back to your awareness, the quicker you can find ground in your system, the quicker you can get into alignment, the quicker you can stop meddling from that place, the better. Because when we act from those qualities, when we act from fear, when we act from stress, when we act from anxiety and overwhelm, right? there's a qualitative energy component there. And when you act from that place, it's one thing to have that experience. It's another thing to act from that place. I don't know about you guys, but just check your own life. When you act from that place, you tend to break stuff or make things harder for yourself. And now you got to work even harder to bring those things back into alignment. It's a lot of work. And it really does take something to learn, hey, if I just sit with this experience and I just observe, I nearly guarantee you, and again, we've tested this with thousands of people, that about 95% of the problems you currently have, if you just learn to leave them alone and just observe how they're unfolding, they will resolve on their own. Happens in my life all the time. The moment I hit the point of surrender is the moment that magic always happens. It's like surrender is where God is. You want to see magical shit happen in your life? Learn the art of surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It just means surrendering and honoring and loving the experience that you're having. And if you can't love the experience that you're having, then love yourself that you can't love this experience. And you'll find that point of surrender. Again, this stuff is really strange to talk about because a lot of it is very paradoxical. It's like be aware, but be detached. Okay? Notice that's happening, don't act. It's not what the system wants to do, but something to consider is maybe that's not human nature. Maybe that's the conditioning we've been given. And there is other conditioning. And so if it was conditioned into you, I believe it can be conditioned out, or at least shifted at the very least. But it's true what John Lennon said. Love is all you need. If you're having an experience that is undesirable, more love. More love. You have so much empathy for it that you just are swooning for that. And eventually, the experience of being alive and the experience of observing, no matter what's arising in your stimulated experience, nervous system, mental experience, becomes the joy. It's not about the circumstance itself. It's your ability to observe that becomes joyful. And so when you see really wise people and they look very happy, it's because they have done this work so long and so often that every area of their life is received. It's welcomed in like a guest that's coming off the street, and you're going to cook them this beautiful dinner, and you're like, just come into my house, sit. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to honor you. I'm going to attune to you. I'm going to love you. And when you do that, you surrender, and experiences start moving through. And what you'll notice is, again, the one that is watching, that in itself is the pleasure, not the circumstances that you're watching. So, with my dad, again, full circle, it's like that relationship has changed so much. It's wild. I used to know that I wanted to go see him, travel, and then I would feel that anxiety in my system. So there's always a little bit of like stress and going to go be around him because it reminded me of trauma from my childhood. And like, I just don't experience that anymore. And to my mind, that's like, my mind doesn't know what to do with that experience. It's so accustomed to that. But for 4 years now, when I'm around my dad, it's like a genuinely like beautiful, safe, loving connection. And I've never enjoyed it more, to the point where I'm like, I just don't have enough time with my dad. They live on the other coast. Now it's like, I look for opportunities. And there are other like little tics and stuff that, you do with your hands, or your body's jumpy, or all these like anxious tics, or you play with your hair, or whatever it is that you do. These are all signs of uncomfortable energy in the body. And there's like lots of little stuff like that I've been doing my whole life that suddenly I just don't do. And even to me, it's like, wow, I don't do that anymore. Like I always did that. And so these are all signs to me of nervous system health. Okay. And again, healing does not mean resolution. It means my ability to be with what's arising. The things, I still have things that 5 years ago in my life were terrifying to me. Even 3 years ago were terrifying to me. Those things arise now in my life. And I'm like, I feel the tinge of that panic and that fear in my system, but it doesn't overcome me. It doesn't take me over. I don't act from that place. I don't talk to my kids or my wife from that place anymore. And that used to do a lot of damage. And so even though those things aren't resolved, and I don't know, maybe that's something I get to deal with for the rest of my life and they won't be resolved, but it continues to teach me. And I continue to learn how to be a better, more loving, empathetic person every time I take the time and commit myself to viewing that thing and observing it and not trying to change it. Just surrendering to that it's here, I'm having an experience. I'm going to watch that experience. I'm going to get support while I'm in that experience. And I'm going to keep finding more ground, more safety, more well-being, more connection in my system. And every single lap I do around the circumstance in my life benefits me and benefits the people around me. And I do believe that one day, eventually, like, it'll change. I will have that breakthrough because I know that I've been carrying around the conditioning of this thing, not for the last 5 years, but for my whole life. It was just that, 5 years ago, I got into circumstance. I got married. I had kids. It started bringing stuff up that I wasn't really dealing with because I created a great persona, ego, and identity that was extremely good at hiding it and protecting me from seeing that that's what was happening in my life. But as I really started to feel into what was so in my life, it became very clear that I had been carrying this thing around for a long time. And even in my 20s, when I was doing a lot of developmental work, I started mimicking and modeling what other successful people were doing. I've had to unwind all of that over the last few years, realizing that even that was just another persona, another mask, another personal reality that I created to make myself feel like I had some sense of control or success in my life. I started sitting like them, talking like them, moving like them. And I realized even at 27, I was really impressionable. I was looking to transform my life. I started at 19 and then I got loved that way. I became valued that way, and so I went into all my relationships being a coach, whether it was a loving relationship or with friends, always giving advice, always telling people how to think about things differently, thinking, oh, okay, this is how I'm finally valuable in this world to these people. And the feedback I started getting from my friends is, you're not listening. You're not being here with me. You're not really present. They didn't want my knowledge. They just wanted my presence. It's always the same. We just want somebody to see us, be with us, receive us, and we can get really inauthentic in these and lost in these different personas. And I had to get real with myself. I'm like, I didn't do that. I just adopted that. So let me go back here and look at some of these questions if I can find them. Yeah, so I'll start from where I see the top. Ian says, I have a question about money and wealth. I'm not really into it, but I need it, which causes a clash in my life. Just my thought. So I'm not totally clear what the question is, but I guess the question is you're not chasing money, but you need money. So how do you go about that? Well, for me, it's like, look, I've been building this business for 13 years. This business is one of the reasons why I feel panic and fear and anxiety, right? There's a lot of people, we have a lot of employees. We have a lot of people that rely on us. There's down months, there's up months, there's all sorts of stuff that happens here. It's right. You guys get to see the coaching side of things, but you guys don't see what makes the sausage. You don't see the machine behind it. It takes a lot, even a webinar system breaking down and then getting 10 emails about it and dealing with customer service and trying to figure that out, blah, blah, blah. It's all these minute little things that stack up and create a laundry list of items that happen on a weekly basis about things that don't work and are outside of our control most of the time. And people hold you liable for all sorts of stuff, especially when you're doing this kind of work, right? Because they feel, maybe you do too, you're entitled to a certain promise. The only thing I feel entitled to is to sharing what I've learned that's made a dramatic impact in my life. What you choose to do with that and the level of commitment you have to that, that's completely up to you. I can't transform your life no more than anybody helped me transform mine. I had amazing teachers who guided me and showed me where to look, but it was really up to me to figure out what it was that I was looking at. And I feel the same way about teaching. So the reason I say that is because if you're not passionate about what you're doing, it's really just hard to stick with it. When people are like, I don't feel motivated. I'm like, yeah, you're not passionate. I'm going to quit soon. You're not passionate probably, right? When you love what you're doing, it's very hard to walk away from it. And there have been a lot of opportunities over the last 13 years, even recently, for me to look at and be like, this is just too much. It's too stressful. There's things that happen that feel like, is it really worth the amount of effort that we're putting in? Having said that, I feel determined to pass along transformational experiences to people. Elon does too. I'm very grateful to have a blood brother who feels that way about this kind of work that I do. But it's not to say that we don't have challenges in how the business is run and what we're doing and how it impacts our personal lives at times. We hold a lot for a lot of people. People go through a lot of very traumatic experiences. We feel very close to many of our clients. They're losing loved ones. They're getting sick. All sorts of stuff happens, in programs. That's been my experience. You have a 3-month program with 15 people inside, you will see every circumstance of reality show up for people. And there's some really, really challenging stuff out there. So all that to say, if you can find something that you love, first of all, the money thing seems to matter a lot less. And then secondly, when you find that thing and you really are willing and able to pursue your life from that place, resources do seem to show up at the most opportune times. And they kind of give you this clue, you got to keep going. And so every time things have gotten really challenging around here, something tends to happen. And it's the sign of like, you got to keep going. I don't know if this is a 10-year thing, a 20-year thing, like to reach the kind of success, what we would consider success, the type of reach that we want to have, the type of community that we want to have, the type of community that refers other people into the community that we want to have because they know the value of this work. And like all that stuff just takes time. When you see people being really successful, there's that like joke, it only took 10 years to be an overnight success. People don't see what you put behind it. So, with money, if money is not the motivation, then find a vehicle that motivates you, and you'll see money gets attracted to that vehicle. Zoe said, how does one build a healthy relationship with time? I've seemed to be oblivious to the passing of time or late or feeling rushed. What is going on with me? Well, Zoe, the first thing to do is to just accept that this is your relationship to time. Other people may have strong opinions about your relationship to time. And so the feedback you get perhaps is not a positive one, but if you want to begin to love yourself in that place, that's how you do it. Like, I'll be honest, when I look at most circumstances, my first response is negative. I'm like, that's not going to work. Once I get through my negativity and my resignation and my apathy with most things, what is left is love and inspiration and hope and all these other things that oftentimes actually feel scary to me because I'm like, fuck, if I hope and it doesn't work out, my heart's going to be broken. Okay, so my heart's going to be broken. But something like I've been practicing is like, I've tried to hide the fact that I'm generally speaking kind of like, I could be a little bit of a downer when people share stuff with me. I'm like, or about like circumstances in my life because of so many times where things didn't work out. And so it's being informed by that. But what I've come to recognize is, number one, I gotta own it and claim it. I gotta take responsibility for the fact that sometimes I show up in a dramatic fashion and look at things in a negative way. This is new for me, by the way, that I'm sharing this, especially so publicly, because I've had shame around this. I want you guys to all think I'm this like hyper positive guy that, has it all figured out all the time. But that's not the case. Life stirs it up, baby, And I was like, you know what? If I don't start speaking that I'm going to claim that and own it, then it's always going to have ownership over me. So I recognize that this is not who I am, nor is your relationship to time with who you are. This is a matter of something in your conditioning. Either in your house, it was really important to be on time and you were like, fuck that, and you became the rebellious one. Or in your house, nobody was on time, and that's just what you learned. And so to other people who are in homes where they were always on time, they're going to see that as a point of being disrespectful, or depending on what society you're in, German society, American society, right, where things are on time. But there's places in the world, Spain, I don't think they would give a shit if you were on time at all, right? So is it a matter of society? Is it a matter of conditioning? What's important to you? But you personally will not have peace with it until you get intimate with the fact that maybe for you, time has a different relationship. And now maybe it's time to sit with somebody who can hold you while you operate in time the way that you operate in time. And then maybe as that begins to shift and you accept that and you claim it, you'll see that something does begin to start shifting. But there's an unmet need in there. I'm tracking your system. I do feel something in your stomach, like a tightening, that when that need gets met, I wouldn't be surprised if the relationship to time changes. Take one more here from Elena. I struggle with staying focused. Let me see if I can broadcast this to the room. I struggle with staying focused, motivated, and disciplined with things I know I want to do. What is going on here? Do I not want it enough? Am I comfortable in my status quo? I keep searching. So I do want to change the movement. Yeah. So, I mentioned it before, with motivation, I think something that we get to expect from us is that we're going to go through different seasons in our lives. Our planet goes through seasonal changes. Every single one of these seasons is crucial to this environment for it to operate in balance. If it was summer all the time, I know it would be very pleasing for the human being, but we wouldn't get enough rain, and the ground wouldn't get nourished, and the plants wouldn't grow, and the food wouldn't grow. And so we have this thing called fall, where everything falls off and then goes into the ground, and then the mushrooms and the fungus and the bacteria come and eat that stuff and bring the nourishment back to the planet. And those plants re-energize our planet and bring forth the bounty that comes in the spring. But in the winter, everything's at rest. It's usually covered in snow and lays underground, right? And this is a time for refreshment to happen in our lives. And so, look, am I motivated 24 hours a day? I'm probably more motivated than most, but it has more to do with my energetic constitution than anything else. I'm what we call like a fire system. Fire systems are like this: go, 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 right? Like this is athletes, hardcore business people have these kind of traits. I don't do either one of those things, but I would probably be good at both those things if that's what motivated me. So I have this like insatiable amount of energy if I want to tap it. I don't have to, but when I was younger, I was like that all the time. Now it's like more of a choice. And so again, it's like, is society telling you that you need to be motivated? If you're not motivated, then sit with not being motivated. One of my favorite things to do with clients is to have them show up tired to a call. I know that seems crazy, but I love it. And I'm going to tell you why. Because you've learned that being tired is not allowed in this society, right? And tired is something that happens to all of us. Now, it's a magical thing when you give somebody permission to be tired. Genuinely, like fucking magical. And so when tired is seen through the lens of awareness, somebody else is sitting there giving you permission being tired, you're going to notice that you go into this really intense tired state. And within a few minutes, as that need gets met in the body to feel the tiredness, it metabolizes and then something opens up and then you come out of the tiredness and you have this incredible clarity and energy. And it's shocking because sometimes it just takes a few minutes. Maybe it's 15, 20 minutes, but whatever. But you let tired be. And it's like for the person, it's like boink. It's so eye-opening to sit with tiredness because nobody's ever told you, would it be okay to permission that tiredness? Shocking. And so what I would tell you, Elena, is sit with being unmotivated and sit with somebody and have them see you in your state of unmotivation. Unmotivation, again, this is logical thinking, mind, but there's a feeling associated in the body. I'm tracking your solar plexus is very tight. And you would sit with that sensation in the body and you would just let unmotivated be. And you would let somebody see you, receive you, attune to you, and accept you. And what you'll notice is the lack of motivation is coming from you cannot fully you haven't learned yet how to fully receive this experience that we're calling being unmotivated. And so you get trapped in it. And so just like stress, when you don't feel it, or anger or apathy or resignation or grief, when you don't feel it, it gets stuck in the body. And when it gets stuck, the mind freaks out and it amplifies. And then it gets more out of control. And this is how people have anxiety attacks and stuff like that. So what happens if you learn to love being unmotivated? It was like a joyful experience. Like, I was going to sit here and I'm going to melt and I'm going to let you receive me and love me through my unmotivation. And I promise you something magical would happen in your experience if you allowed for that. Absolutely magical. Absolutely magical. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an insight. Accepting it is always, allowing for it is always the key. Love it, right? John Lennon, love is all you need. Love being unmotivated. And you'll see as you move through that, something will change. And I wouldn't be surprised if motivation comes. So last thing I want to say is a lot of you guys who are looking to take that next step in our community, you may not be clear on what that next step is. Maybe you're a part of MMI or Primary Abundance or even have a ticket to the Intuitive Mind Live event. We have a whole curriculum called the Awareness Effect Academy. Okay, the first program, level 1, is a 2-month program, but you can really stay in the coaching for up to a year. If you don't know that, we have 6 live calls a month there, by the way, group coaching calls. They're incredible. They're run by Nikki and a few other coaches, and they've been around us for a long time. They're amazing human beings. After that, you have level 2. That's another 4 months. And level 3, we've actually now extended for a year. So you can be working in this community anywhere between 2 months all the way up to about an 18-month experience. And it's really that day in, day out commitment that I can tell you. I don't like to use the word guarantee because I can't guarantee you anything, but I know that I can't guarantee you anything if you don't show up and do work on a regular basis. The only reason Elon and I have seemingly this level of wisdom and knowledge and things to share with you is because for 21 years, we have consistently, without fail, never stopped doing work. And just like changing a physical habit or a mental habit, it requires repetition and reminders. I still need reminders all the time from my trusted teachers and guides in my life. And it continues to reveal itself in beautiful, spontaneous, and dramatic ways. And so we've already done all that work for you here. You don't have to go find a community. You don't have to go find another course or another thing. Like we know, because we've tested across tens of thousands of people what we're teaching, and that it works for everybody that shows up and does the work. Now, your pacing and your transformation and healing is your pacing. We all have our own pacing. There's going to be stuff that feels stuck for a long time. And depending on the level of trauma that you're dealing with, you can expect the more traumatized the human being is, generally speaking, the longer they need to be in work. A teacher once told me, if you're lightly traumatized, you're on a 1 to 3 year track. If you're medium traumatized, whatever that is, you're on a kind of like 3 to 6 year track. But if you're heavily traumatized, it's like a 7 to 10 year journey. And that shouldn't be that surprising, because we've all heard the old adage that it takes 10,000 hours to master something. And when you break up those hours of 10,000 hours, it basically boils down to 7 years of work. And in my experience, having now been in a lot of different teachings for long periods of time, they don't really start even getting really great until I reach 7 years. So when you start something, you're going to be a student. When you continue, you're going to be a practitioner. When you start getting beyond practitioner, it's the mastery of the work. Now you no longer need to think. It's just being generated through you. It's happening. It's become autonomous. It is now unconsciously healing itself. I used to really focus on energy and my body and this and that, and like do these things that we call parts work and metabolize stuff. And most clients will probably do that for about 1 to 3 years. But eventually, just walking around, eyes open, I'm in meditation. Not all the time, but a lot more than I used to be. So like I can just sit here in my awareness with eyes open, have a mental conversation with you, but there's a part of me that's watching and metabolizing all the time. And I don't have to put effort into that anymore. But in the beginning, just like when you start moving the car, there's more energy that you have to put in order to get there. And it's why we provide programs for up to 18 months. Because for those of you guys that are deeply committed to doing this work, we're telling you right now, that is what's required of you. We'd love to have you at a 2-day event and show you what we got, so you can feel if it's alignment for you. But if you know, you're like, fuck, I want to be on a accelerated path for transformation and healing, then you got to commit to a path. We're happy to show you how to walk that path, where the pitfalls are, how to move through them, so that you don't take 21 years to learn what we've learned, but you can learn that in the next 18 months. And you're going to see, just being part of this community, working with people directly on a regular basis and doing these simple little practices will massively, massively transform every area of your life. Okay. So if you're ready to go, the first step is always, if you haven't done level 1, you can check that out at soulsandseekers.com/level 1. Level 1 is just the number 1. So level 1, and that explains everything about level 1. And if you go there, you can even sign up monthly. I recommend you sign up annually. It's going to save you a bunch of money, and you're just going to be committed, because it's 72 calls, group calls for the entire year, 72 calls, 6 calls a month. And there's 7 incredible life-changing modules back there that are the basis and foundation of that work. If you know that you want to move beyond that, you're ready to like get this party started, you can go to soulsandseekers.com/Elon, and you can book a call with Elon to talk about our more advanced programs, L2 and L3, so he can give you a taste of what those are. And you can feel into whether those programs are right for you. Just so you know, to get on a call with Elon does have an $111 fee, mostly because we don't want just random people booking on Elon's calendar and not showing up for it. And if you do decide to move forward with any of our programs, we'll just credit that $111 towards those programs at that time. But my call to you is really consider the power of committing to a process over the next few months or over the next year and a half. Because if you really want to get phenomenal results, you want your relationships to change, you want your physical, how you deal with your physical body to change, energetic, mental, emotional body. Like, you want to do transformation work, you want to accelerate healing. That's why you come work with a mentor. That's why you come work with a coach. Okay, we are happy to supply you with all the tools that we have gathered over a 21-year period. It's a lot of work with a lot of different teachers to come to some very fundamental principles that, when they are applied to people, work every time. Okay, we have an incredible success rate in this company, well north of 95%. So we'd love to have you be in our programs. We'd love to show you what we got. We'd love to support you. We'd love to bring you in and have you be part of an incredible community, global community that's growing and is here to support each other. And, some people have developed incredible relationships inside of this community because of the nature of this work and how personal it is, right? There's people in this community that know each other way better than they know people in their family, again, because their level of sharing and work that they go through is at a much deeper level. So that's my calling to you. I love you guys. Again, soulsandseekers.com/level1. You can sign yourself up for that one. If you're interested in advanced work beyond that, soulsandseeker.com/Elon. Get yourself on the book call. If you have any questions, just email support@satoriprime.com. Love you very much. See you next time. Take care, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, dear one, for choosing to share a bit of your day with us. We value you greatly. And as a way to give back and help you to deepen these practices, we want to invite you to join our incredible community on Facebook. You can do so easily by going to joinoldsouls.com and ask for an invite. This is our private community where old souls and seekers are able to grow and share their journey with others. We hold exclusive weekly live streams, we answer your personal questions, and offer valuable insights that we won't be able to share here on the podcast. So again, just head to joinoldsouls.com and grab your invite today. And as always, if you enjoy this podcast, please head to iTunes and leave us a review. It's the only way other people can find this show. So if it's making a difference in your life, please share the love. Until we meet again, have an amazing week, dear one.